Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to The Code is Chaos, No One is Immune. So I'm Sonya, I work Dark Hoodies, so I'm a legit security engineer. So I wanted to start by giving a short description of what is cybersecurity and why is it important. So cybersecurity is the techniques of protecting computers, networks, programs, and data from unauthorized access or attacks that are aimed for exploitation. I'll give some examples of cyber attack. So the first one is that one. So you might be wondering, that's the GitHub 500 error page. So basically what happened there, so 4 years ago, there was a series of DDoS attacks that were launched against DNS servers, and it disrupted all of those platforms, so GitHub, PayPal, Twitter, Spotify. So wait, what is a DDoS attack? So DDoS stands for denial distribution of service. So basically an attacker would actually get a hand on several computers that they will actually bot and zombify and then launch the attack against resources and just exhausted those resources and assets. So it sounds a little bit scary. How can an attacker do this, actually? So who here is familiar with the website called Shodan? Okay. So basically, Shodan is a search engine for internet-connected devices. So I've put the, it's quite small, but I've put a webcam in the search input. And this is all I get. So basically, it's all the webcam connected with default credentials just open to the internet, so open to the world. So that's really scary, actually. What is even more scary is that you can actually get webcam images. Obviously, I've redacted it, but this is what you can actually get from Shodan. I also get stuff like indoors, but I didn't want, obviously, to put it, but you can also imagine what you can find. So like, yeah, that's really scary. Another example of cyber attack is, and you might be probably familiar with this, ransomware. So what is a ransomware attack? So basically, the attacker will send a phishing email, and the user will click on the link, and on the background, you'll have the malware downloading on your machine, and then it will encrypt your data, and you have to pay in Bitcoins to have your data decrypted. So this was the WannaCry ransomware. This is the largest attack from ransomware, and it hits 130 countries in total, so it's the biggest ransomware attack. Another example for a cyber attack is sextortion. Sounds sexy to say it like that. But basically, the attacker will send you an email. By the way, that's a scam, so you probably received that email in your spam box. So basically, the attacker will send you an email saying that he has installed something on your computer to record, and you've been doing nasty stuff, and he recorded everything, and he's going to send it to your family, your friends, your employee. And yeah, you need to pay Bitcoins, because otherwise it's going to be really nasty for you. And you can see that the little blur bit at the top, that's the password. So how is this happening, actually? So what you can check is, yeah, on website like Have I Been Pwned, instead of having I love just monthly, just put your email address and see which accounts or companies you have been part of the data breach. So how data breach occur? So usually an attacker will follow what we call a cyber kill chain. So we start by doing a little bit of recon at first to gather some information to know more about the target. Then it will weaponize or create a payload to attack the websites or the application or network. Then they will deliver the payload. They will explode. So the payload will be installed on the machine. They can do also pivoting through the network, so to gain admin access. So basically, it's like the jackpots if they're getting access. And then it will depend if it's for a data breach, obviously, is to exfiltrate all the data. So yeah, basically the attacker in this case can get information through social engineering, so through a phishing email attack, for example, or looking at the infrastructure vulnerabilities through SQL injection, through cross-site scripting, all of those. Once the attacker finds an entry point, then it will attack and exfiltrate all the data. And obviously, selling data on the dark web is a way of getting money. This is just an example of some of the companies that suffer a data breach a lot. I'm pretty sure you've already used a lot of them. Another way of visualizing the data breaches, you can see like big data breaches from Twitter, Facebook, all of those. So I wanted to talk about one web application attack Just raise of hand, who thinks which company I'm talking about when only 22 lines of code and you had 380,000 victims? Do you know which company I'm talking about in that case? No? Just guess. So it was British Airways, actually, with only 22 lines of code, and I'm going to explain it why. So in 2018, British Airways announced it has suffered a data breach, also announced it on Twitter. So they noted that less than 400,000 customers could have been affected, and they have stolen information, including personal and payment information. So payments through their main website were affected. Payments through their both Android and iOS mobile apps were affected. And the payments were affected from August 21st to September the 5th. So within 2 weeks, the attack was enforced. So what happened during those 2 weeks, actually? So we've seen that customer data were stolen directly from payment forms. So basically, when the user were submitting the form, the data were actually siphoned by the attacker. And we could see that the same type of cyber attack happened when Ticketmaster UK reported a breach a few months earlier. So we could see a pattern there. And actually, a security researcher found out that it was a group called MageCart that was the main suspect. And you're like, Mage who? What are we talking about? So MageCart is a consortium of malicious hacker groups who target online shopping cart systems to steal payment card information. And they're quite well known by targeting the framework called Magento, which is a PHP framework. And this is known as a supply chain attack because they're targeting third-party management packages. So what was the entry point? There's also another question. Can you guess which JavaScript package allowed them to actually have that entry point? Have a guess. No. So it was Modernizer. Modernizer JavaScript library version 2.6.2, yeah. So basically what happened, the attacker appended a snippet of code at the end of the scripts. So they usually do this because probably they're not a really good coder and they don't want to break the logic, so they will append it at the end so they don't really touch the functionality. But still, the malicious piece of code is there. And how can we actually see that the Modernizer has been tampered with? So basically, the server sends a last modified header that will indicate the last time a piece of static content has been modified. So at the top, you could see that this was the last version of Modernizer, and this was actually the piece where it has been tampered with. You can see it's 2018, the 21st of August. This is when actually the attack started. And this was the piece of code, only 22 lines of code. It's amazing. So basically, for those who don't get what that piece of code is all about, so basically when a user hits the button to submit the payment, the info from the payment form is extracted alongside with their name and sent to the attacker server, which is this one, this address. They get all the information in that address. And they've also created a specific website and register everything to actually get all of those info, just like baways.com. So what about the apps? Because, okay, we get the gist for the website, it was Modernizer. So basically, a portion of the app is native, so with Android and iOS, but the majority of its functionality loads from web pages from the official British Airways website. So for those of you who are not familiar with a native app, you can actually use those classes in Android and iOS called web views, which allow you to actually inject JavaScript directly within your native app. So this was the page for British Airways there is compromised. And if we look at the source, the code source of this web page, it's the same CSS and same JavaScript components as the website. Bam, we're back with Modernizer. Same attack. So what happened after that? Well, Monzo had to also reissue some of the cards to prevent fraud for their customers. But for British Airways, they got fined $230 million under GDPR for data breach. That's really bad. So you're wondering, how can I protect my website? Because I don't want this to happen in my company. Good news, you have tools. You have security features and security tools. So let's go first with the security features. So who here is familiar with Content Security Policy, CSP? Cool. So for those who are not familiar, a CSP is a HTTP response header, and it will restrict how resources such as JavaScript, CSS, and all the other assets that you have on your website are loaded by the browser. It will mitigate injection attacks, including cross-site scripting. So basically, you would have something like, so the asset will go, so you will have a whitelist of all the assets that you will allow on the page, and if you have something like malicious.com, which is not in your example.com, it won't be loaded by the browser. So you have a good website called contentsecuritypolicy.com, easy to remember. They actually go through all of the versions of the different CSP that you can find, because it's like 3 versions at the moment, with all the browsers that are supporting those. There's quite a good coverage for that. The website also goes through all the directives that you can use. So depending on the assets that you have on your website, should it be JavaScript, fonts, images, you have a directive for each of them, and also the value that you want to assign to it. And they will also give you examples. So for those of you who are wondering how you could whitelist also like Google Tags Management or your third-party marketing, they'll also give you examples on it. Also, a tip that I would recommend is before pushing live on production your CSP is to do a little bit of fine-tuning at first, because it might probably break your website, because you can't really whitelist all of your set on the first try. So I would recommend to use websites like Report UI, where you have report only for your CSP. And you'll actually have an endpoint where you will collect all the errors, and it will help you actually fine-tune your CSP, and then you can ship it to live, to prod. Another good security feature is SUBRESOURCE integrity. Who here is familiar with SRI? Okay. So the SRI enables browsers to verify that the resources they're fetching from a CDN are delivered without being tampered, and they're using actually a hash, a cryptographic hash. So basically, you would have something like, let's say you have a script with the hash, and if it's from a CDN, it recognizes it, so it's fine. But because here we have an attacker manipulating the server, we have a different hash, so it won't actually load it through the browser. And to give you an example, this is Bootstrap. I don't know who's using Bootstrap, but just to give you an example of that. So you would see actually for jQuery and the other, you have this integrity hash, the SHA-384. So this is to prove actually the integrity of this script. If a third party doesn't provide you this SRI, you can actually generate it and append it to your scripts. So there's a good website called SR Hash Generator that will help you generate this hash. There's also a good coverage for the browser, so yeah, it's also a good production. Let's go to the security tools now, because I've presented you the security features with the CSP and the SRI. So who here is familiar with the dependency graph and DEPENDABOT on GitHub? Which, by the way, there's free tools for that. So the dependency graph is available on every public repository by default. You have to activate it for your private repository. And they will define dependencies in a supported language using a supported files format. So this is the latest, because they've actually added some languages and some formats. But you can see it covers a lot of languages. So yeah, let's say for like yarn or npm, they will go through your package.json and let you know if there's any packages that have vulnerabilities. If you have a private repo, what you can do is go to your repo, go to your Insights tab, click on dependency graph, and just allow access, and then it will start feeding. The thing with dependency graph, it'll just have like a yellow box at the top of the repo, and you'll ask yourself, yeah, that's cool, but I don't really know which version I have to upgrade to. Well, good news, because GitHub has acquired DEPENDABOT. So DEPENDABOT actually will raise automatically a pull request and let you know to which version you can upgrade. By the way, you can find, so there's 2 ways you can find DEPENDABOT, through the marketplace, but also through the settings in your repo. So DEPENDABOT will raise pull requests and let you know to which version you have to update it. And the good thing with DEPENDABOT, it's actually what they call the compatibility score. So basically, they will compare with other open source projects, and if it doesn't break their CI/CD pipeline, they'll bump up this score, so you have more confidence to merge that PR. And you can also link into Slack, which is cool. Also, it's pretty much granular, so you can set different features, so depending on if you want to target a specific branch or a specific language. So there's a lot of options that you can set through a config YAML file. There's another tool called Snyk. I'm pretty much sure that you know about Snyk. Snyk does exactly the same thing as DEPENDABOT, so it's free for open source. It's also free for a small organization, I think, but then it's also a commercial tool after. So also available on the GitHub marketplace. And the good thing with Snyk is it provides an online platform where you can see your repos and different vulnerabilities that you have within the repos. And there's a piece of information detailing what is this vulnerability about, just to give you a little bit more info. And there's also a cool integration with Slack. And you can also integrate it through your PR. So depending how mature is your CI/CD pipeline, you can also make your build fail. This is really depending on the maturity of your pipeline, but you can make it required and make it fail. Maybe you've been interested by all of those and you want to say, I want to learn more about security. Who wants to learn more about security here? Raise of hands. Yay, cool. So I would recommend a good starting point would be the OWASP Foundation. Who here is familiar with OWASP? Okay, cool. So OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Projects. So basically it's a community of developer and security researcher. They'll provide a lot of resources and tools. So you might be familiar with the OWASP Top 10, which is the 10 most critical. Usually they have like 2013 and 2017, the top 10, they have it. But I would recommend go beyond those top 10 and just have a look at the other publications that they have. So they have everything like through API, mobile, IoT, name it, you will find it. And everything is free on their website, so they're really good. If you're interested, if you want to get your hands dirty, I would recommend from OWASP, they have a website called, well, a web application, node.js application to be called App Juice Shop. So basically that's a vulnerable app that you can play around and just hack. And you can also use OWASP, which is a proxy that you can actually fuzz around with on this application, for example. If you feel a little bit more adventurous, you can go to Hack the Box. So basically Hack the Box will provide with 100 blocks that you need to pwn. So basically you have 2 flags to find, the root and the user. So obviously if you want to have the root, you have to do some sort of like privilege escalation to get admin access. So there's a little bit of challenge around that. But you would also need to actually set up your pen testing lab. So I would recommend to download Toolbox to get your VM and then your Kali Linux Debian. And once you've set up your pen testing lab, you can start actually get your hands dirty on all of those machines. You have Linux and Windows machines. It's quite addicting actually to get all of those flags. It's, by the way, this is called CTF, capture the flag for that. I would also recommend Portswigger, which is the company who's doing Burp Suite. So it's the same as OWASP, but more on like commercial sites. But they do have a web security academy with a lot of those attacks that you usually hear about, but you don't really get what it is. So they have really good tutorials around that. So I would recommend the Web Security Academy. And if you want to earn money by finding bugs, I would recommend join Backcrawler and HackerOne. So they're crowdsources platform where you act as a security researcher, you will be part of programs, and you can find bugs and security bugs within companies, and you get paid for that, so it's a great opportunity. And they also have some sort of like academy online platform where you can actually learn about hacking, well, ethical hacking. And if you're working in a company and you have a security team and you're interested in not necessarily moving to security, but just being more involved, I would recommend ask them if they have a security champion program. So basically, who here is aware of the security champion program or is a security champion? Okay, so security champion basically is the bridge between developers and the security team, because usually your security team is quite small. So the security team can't attend all of the agile Scrum ceremonies usually. So it will develop this little security champions network, and they will train them and probably like send them to conferences or events, and they will just act as the bridge between the two teams. So it's quite interesting if your security team is proposing it. Also, for those who wants to learn more about security, I've wrote a piece on Medium around how to become security engineer. It's more about like gathering like podcasts, YouTube channels, all of those in this article. So if you're curious about it, I would recommend going. And also I have this initiative called Epic Women of Cybersecurity. So basically it's women working in cybersecurity. I wanted to give highlight and increase like diversity and inclusivity for any women working in cybersecurity, because usually you have the big names, so you don't really have the other women who are working not probably in light, but they do a lot of good things. So yeah, every week I actually upload every Friday names on it. And if it happens that you work in cybersecurity, please come and tell me. I can add you on that list. Finally, I would recommend 2 other meetups. Sorry, I'm just like shamelessly doing stuff. But yeah, so Ladies of London Hacking Society and Alba's London chapter are 2 really good cybersecurity meetups if you're interested in security, or even if you're a beginner. It's also very beginner friendly. And Ladies of London Hacking Society is more like hands-on, because they have partnership with online platform where you can actually try like CDF and forensic and all of those. It's quite cool because you feel like Matrix and Mr. Robot at the end. Yeah, cool. And yeah, I'll just like to finish with my motto: get secure, be secure, and stay secure. Thank you.